If you've ever read any of my columns or spoken with me for more than about 1 minute, you know that I think music is incredibly important. However, today I want to focus on what makes song special, and that's words. First, I have to say that the journey up these 3 steps is a long ways, and I'm incredibly humbled to be doing this. This is a remarkable thing. Also, with relation to this, if you've seen the quotations that hang in the restrooms here, they're marvelous. And if you haven't, you need to go to the bathroom more. But there's one up right now that says that what matters is what you say. It doesn't matter the words that you use. And today, I want to add a little nuance to that because I think that the words are kind of important. Words are special because they come with the psychological frame embedded in them. For instance, if I say sodium hydrogen carbonate, you probably picture scientists in a lab, and the lab coats probably men, though hopefully our frames are becoming more diverse, under fluorescent lights doing experiments. If I say baking soda, your frame probably changes to something a lot more domestic, or maybe a refrigerator full of unpleasant smells. Embedded in our words are a host of ideas, and if we are deliberate about how we frame, we can change people's minds and make a difference in our society. I'm drawing today this sermon from this book, Don't Think of an Elephant, by George Lakoff. And if you don't own it, you need to go buy it. Not only will it hopefully provide insights into the power of frames, but also practical direction into how we can win the framing fight, and in which folks, unfortunately, on the radical right have a huge head start on us. Pro-life. Does that make someone on the opposite side pro-death?
Yeah.
We've been framed. Accountability in education through high-stakes testing. We must want anarchy then if we don't want high-stakes tests. The American Health Care Act. Well, if we oppose that, we must oppose health care for Americans, right? So how do we address these difficulties? So often, progressive leaders provide us with platitudes or vague pronouncements about how we should stand up and fight for what we believe in, demonstrate, be passionate, but they never seem to get around to the how of how this works. First, understand that all thought is physical. This is mind-blowing. Thought takes place in our brain through physical connections called synapses between neurons. These are physical parts of our bodies. And the frames I'm going to talk about today are the pathways between related synapses, physio-mental structures that shape the way we see the world. Activate a frame, and you activate all of the related information. Bringing criminals to justice versus fighting a war on crime. Justice, war. Tremendously different baggage with each. Also, a frame cannot be negated. If we reply, "This is not a war on crime," we just activated the war frame in order to oppose it. In doing so, we've actually strengthened their arguments. Because in order to oppose something, you have to bring it to mind and consciously understand it. If we use the language of our opponents, we are activating our opponent's frames, and we've already lost. And facts won't help. If we've lost the frame, no amount of the facts will change someone's mind. Studies show that if you present facts to someone who's in a different frame, they reject the facts. Okay? We have to change their frame. Reframing is social change. It's as simple as that. And thinking differently requires speaking differently. So this is your hands-on survival guide to how to debate with your relatives at Christmas. because we have to do the physical change. What is remarkable is that we are all biconceptual to some degree. We can hold two diametrically opposed frames in our mind at the same time. We can envisage, for example, both a strict father and a nurturing parent. And we can simultaneously apply both of those frames to our lives. Perhaps we wish to treat folks in prison for minor offenses with a model based on a nurturing parent. But we expect bank managers who safeguards our retirement to be strict fathers and avoid any hint of misuse of our funds. Lakoff contends that our society is fractured between these exact two frames. I just mentioned a strict father worldview and a nurturing parent worldview. Please allow me to take these apart for a moment. Strict father. A strict father model begins with a set of assumptions. The world is a dangerous place and it always will be because there is evil in the world. The world is also difficult because it is competitive. There will always be winners and losers. There is an absolute right and an absolute wrong. Children are born bad in the sense that they just want to do what feels good and not what is right. Therefore, they need to be made good. What is needed in this kind of world is a strong, strict father. Protect the family in a dangerous world, support the family in a difficult world, and teach children right from wrong. What is required of children is obedience, because the strict father is a moral authority who knows right from wrong. It's further assumed that the only way to teach kids obedience, that is, right from wrong, is through punishment, painful punishment when they do wrong. That is, if people are disciplined and pursue their self-interest in this land of opportunity, they will become prosperous and self-reliant. Thus, the strict father links morality and prosperity. When the good children are mature, they either have learned discipline and can prosper, or have failed to learn it. From this point on, the strict father is not to meddle in their lives. It is immoral to give people things they have not earned, because they will not develop discipline and will become both dependent and immoral. Prosperity is the reward for good people. Does this sound familiar? Okay. Nurturing parent. Both parents, the nurturing parent worldview is gender neutral. Both parents are equally responsible for the children. The assumption is that children are born good and can be made better. The world can be made a better place, and our job is to work on that. A parent's job is to nurture their children and to raise the children to nurture others. What does nurturance mean? It means three things: empathy, responsibility for yourself and others, and a commitment to do your best, not just for yourself, but for your family, your community, your country, and your world. If you have a child, you know what every cry means. You have to know when a child is hungry, when she needs a diaper change, when she's having a nightmare, and you have a responsibility. You have to take care of the child. And since you cannot take care of someone else if you're not taking care of yourself, you have to take care of yourself enough to be able to take care of the child. If you empathize with your child, you will provide protection. And if you empathize with your child, you will want your child to be fulfilled in life and to be a happy person. Let's skip that part because that's the main point. In both of these examples, people want their families to be happy and successful. But because the frames are completely opposite from one another, common ground is very difficult to find. And if we try to find it in their frame, we haven't found common ground. We've ceded our ground without a fight. Rogers said, "I am not the member of any organized political party. I'm a Democrat." When David earlier said this is his first organized choral musical experience, I thought, which choir is he talking about? If you substitute the word progressive, you can see his point today. Under the progressive umbrella includes identity politics progressives, environmentalists, civil liberties progressives, and spiritual progressives, anti-authoritarians, on and on and on, even though we all come from the same nurturant parent frame, our message is fractured. Please look at these two pictures. Okay? Number 2. It's like the eye doctor. Number 1. Number 2. In the second picture, do you see the beautiful creativity and diversity? The joy of self-actualization? Conservatives see a disorganized mess. A group that is easy to ignore because it has no organized frames. I'm not suggesting that we all need to carry the same signs and kowtow to the same message. But if we don't find ways to embrace our commonalities and speak with a unified voice, we lose. Strict father framing is all about order and hierarchy, and they have an advantage there. We see the beautiful creativity which arises from diversity, while they hammer home a message time and again so no one can forget it. People's identities flow from their values, and these are their frames. This is remarkable as the lion's share of people are biconceptual. The two familial models, the strict father and the nurturing parent, are differentiated in that the former centers on personal responsibility, while the latter focuses on empathy. Most people value both. So we cannot denigrate personal responsibility. Instead, focus on the centrality of empathy. Don't even talk about specifics. How many times have you been in a discussion with someone who's on the other side, and they start talking about morality or beliefs, and you start talking about, well, but this program and that policy? Don't get into specifics. People need a vision, not a set of policies. Policy flows from vision. And if someone critiques you as a snowflake, consider a reply such as this. Now, am I allowed to say I'm not a snowflake? No, because I've just made them think of snowflake that much stronger. Instead, which part of being empathetic do you find objectionable? Unless you're speaking to a hardened ideologue, if we can activate our frame more strongly than in that biconceptual person's mind than the conservative can, we've won. And this is not about sound bites and jazzy slogans. Framing begins with ideas. Without the undergirding ideas, attempted framing is simply Orwellian language. Think about draining the swamp. Insincere framing through Orwellian language, however, is an incredible gift to progressives. It exposes the right's Orwellian weakness. Those points which are most reliant on framing are also their weakest points and therefore open to attack. But they can only be attacked through reframing. Remember, not negated. For example, this administration is not draining the swamp, they're promoting swamp monsters. Funny, but it totally activates the conservative frame. Instead, consider, this administration is the most corrupt in memory. And then give a detail, any detail. Take your pick. It's not as sexy, but it fails to rise to the bait of using their frame. Don't try to negate the conservative frame and thereby strongly activate the opposing frame. Propose a positive alternative instead. Framing also requires preparation. It requires years of preparation because it literally requires rewiring our brains. All thought is physical and embodied. And if we need people to think differently, they must use different physical synaptic pathways. And for this, we must prepare people. The right has been rewiring our brains since Reagan. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. Compassionate conservatism. Tax relief. War on terror. These are frames, and they have been used effectively against us for more than 2 generations. They have become self-perpetuating, systemic ideologies, and we need to start uncausing them. Have you used these phrases? By accident, even? Progressives are way behind, but the only way to win is to start competing seriously. This takes 3 steps. Number 1, understand why framing is essential and why the facts are insufficient. Number 2, unite on common ground with other progressives, so that when one is under assault, we all resist. Common ground that fits consistently with our overriding progressive morality strengthens our resolve and our cohesion. If you look at the Women's March or the Science March, it looks like this is happening, but I don't think it is. Because I don't think we've done the all-important first step of creating our frame based on our values. We're just standing together, which is great, but we're still losing if we don't have a unified frame. Number 3, be persistent and don't be stupid. We have to repeat our repeated framed values time and again. Once isn't enough, twice isn't enough. I can talk, I promise. Research shows that it takes 7 encounters at least with an idea to make someone even consider it. And if we know that conservatives have a frame they can activate, don't be dumb enough to play into it and reward their framing. For example, and this is going to be hard to hear maybe, so both hands on seats. If progressives are demonized as radical anarchists, then a peaceful march is the perfect protest. If a violent confrontation, especially with police, that happens, it only reinforces their manifesto that we're in a culture war. To have a war, you have to have conflict. The right needs confrontation in order to succeed. Remember the strict father frame? We need to be safe from the big bad world. If progressives are causing confrontation, we play right into their hands. So don't provide confrontation, reframe. What part of empathy do you find objectionable? This is hard to hear because we desperately want to react, particularly people in minorities who've been oppressed for hundreds of years. We are angry, we are marginalized, but reacting isn't rational. And progressives pride themselves on their rationality, don't we? Let the actual right-wing violence demonstrate just how calm we are. Finally, I know you've been waiting for that word. Policies flow from principles, which flow from values. And values are expressed in frames. The basic progressive vision for America is one of community, of America as a family, as a caring, responsible family. And it's time that we share that vision and that frame, family, community, responsibility with everyone we meet. Have a water cooler speech ready. 30 seconds. Have a positive reframe ready for the big ones that you know are going to come up. Here are some examples. This is close to my heart right here. Always say children, never speak of students when discussing education. No one cares about students. Most people who are opposed to, or who want to do crazy things in education, it's because their experience with school was bad when they were students. If you talk about students, you piss them off. Here's a fun one. Privatization. Stop using that word. Theft of public resources. Try out the phrase government by corporation. That's scary. Remember the good old days when there were those road signs that said your tax dollars at work? Let's bring those back. And when someone complains about construction, mention how great it's going to be because we all paid for it. Here's another great one. The private depends on the public. This might be your mantra going to bed, because if you can say this, we've got a great foot in the door. Think about pharmaceutical research. Breakthroughs almost always begin with publicly funded research, and corporate success depends on reliable infrastructure. Your goods come and go, your electricity stays on, Canada doesn't invade, right? All these things your tax dollars pay for is necessary. The private depends on the public. Here's one you can use tomorrow. Pension and healthcare are not benefits. They are compensation for work already done. You have a total comprehensive You are paid in money and in other things. And it is your pay. And if someone says, well, we're going to take that away, horseshit. It's your payment. It's your compensation. It's a hard one, too. People are not human resources. Resources are expendable. Doesn't this hurt your brain? Right now, your brain is growing new synapses. For real. You are physically rewiring your brain, and I'm helping. I love the frame job creators. That is so powerful, and it's so hard to refute. Corporations, businesses are job creators. Lakoff says, well, that's fine. They are job creators. You know what we are as the workers? We're profit creators. Because if it weren't for us, there would be no profit. Profit creators. Workers? No. Profit creators. They stop the right to stop saying employers. They start saying job creators. Fine. Profit creators. Repeat these over and over again until they're part of your everyday language. Read this book. It takes a weekend. It's 140 pages. It's $11 on Amazon. Don't give it to your right-wing friends. It's incredibly powerful. Share it wisely. I say that with dead seriousness. This has changed my life. Overall, show respect. Respond by reframing. Talk and think at the level of values, not policy, and say what you believe. Now, throughout this sermon, I've been conducting an experiment to demonstrate firsthand how necessary repetition is to rewiring your brain. We began, with very few of you could clap that pattern back to me. It sounded like applause. With repetition, now we're fairly proficient. This is actually a real piece of music. And it's called clapping music, and it's by Steve Reich. With the help of my esteemed colleague, David Early, we're going to perform it together. It's a minimalist work made by a repeating pattern. You stay steady with David, and I'm going to shift. And watch what happens. This is just like reframing. We've got work to do. Ready? Shall we start together?